blow to the national educational standards in Wisconsin? Is my question for Republican State Senator Leah Vukmir. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. We begin today with the controversial educational standards known as Common Core, and a question. Will Wisconsin soon be joining the ranks of states dumping the standards? Late Thursday, Governor Walker issued a one-sentence statement calling on the legislature to repeal Common Core next year and replace it with Wisconsin-based standards. The timing is interesting. Earlier this year, Republican lawmakers pushed to undo the Common Core standards, but failed. We're talking more about this now with Republican State Senator Leah Vukmir of Wauwatosa, who favors repeal of Common Core in Wisconsin. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let me have you address what's being said by some, that this has a lot more to do with politics and a lot less to do with education, that this is about the Republican Party and the governor trying to appease a certain part of the electorate. What do you say to that?
Well, look, this has been an issue that we have been working on for many, many months, and the governor's been with us all along. So to say that suddenly now it's become a political issue, I think really misses the point. And it also misses the point that there's a groundswell of opposition to Common Core standards, and it's not just coming from conservatives and Republicans. You've got teachers' unions in the state of New York. I don't think that they're conservative. Teachers in the city of Madison who are starting to realize that this test that will be tied to the standards is going to have implications in terms of accountability, and tying that to teacher effectiveness, student effectiveness, school effectiveness, report cards. We better hit the pause button, and I think that's the message. It has been growing at a local, state, and national level, an opposition, a momentum opposed to Common Core.
Briefly, why now? Why would the governor say this now? You were among the people who was trying to put the brakes on this earlier in the year. The governor did not really weigh in a big way. Why is he doing it now?
Well, he was part of the process when we developed the piece of legislation, but unfortunately it was our own Republicans that made it difficult for us to get the bill through in the Senate in particular. But I think that the change has, in the last few months, it's been building. You even have Bill Gates, the Bill Gates Foundation. Bill Gates was very involved in the creation of these and supported the Common Core. And he is saying, most recently, let's have a 2-year moratorium on the testing. Locally, here in the state of Wisconsin, the Cedarburg School District voted just this past week that they had a resolution that the legislature and the governor should delay implementation of the test. So I think there's been a gradual groundswell. It isn't something that just occurred right now. And we certainly, Senator Farrow and I, Representative Biesfeld, Representative Nass, have been sounding the alarms about this for some time.
You would concede, though, that there are people, conservatives among them, Jeb Bush for one, who are fans of the Common Core and say we should be moving forward. That it's not a universally held opinion that this is a bad idea.
No, absolutely. As I said, it's been a very interesting mix of people who support and oppose it. And the bottom line is we have an opportunity here, and that's what we tried to do with the legislation we had this last session, to create a set of standards that work better. We don't want to have common standards for Wisconsin. We believe we can do better. We want exceptional standards for Wisconsin.
So how do you do that? What will happen now?
Well, legislature is not in session right now, but come January, we're going to have a different makeup to the legislature. I think we will be
You're confident you'll have a Republican majority in the Senate to get this done?
And we'll have a Republican majority that is far more opposed to Common Core than in support of it. And so we have a piece of legislation that has already been written. We're going to evaluate what other options we need to do given some of the timelines, but we will continue to forge ahead. And I know the governor will be with us, and he has signaled that most recently just this past week.
And as I recall, this commission, 15-member commission, at least was the original proposal, would the legislature not have final say on whatever these standards look like? And is that a good idea?
Well, there will be legislative oversight, but traditionally there has been legislative oversight. So I think there was a lot of scare tactics on the part of the Department of Public Instruction. We specifically said that this group, this board, would not have any legislators on it, that we wanted educators, we wanted people who understood the development of standards. And so, yes, I mean, the legislature is something this monumental should have some oversight, and I think it's kind of silly to think that there wouldn't be.
Several states have dumped Common Core.
Yes.
One of them is Indiana, and the rap against Indiana is that they spend a lot of time and a lot of money coming up with new standards, and the new standards look an awful lot like the Common Core standards, and in fact might even be inferior. Are you concerned that at the end of the day you could have standards that look very similar to the original Common Core standards?
Well, I certainly hope that that doesn't happen, and I think that that's why it's important that you get the right individuals on there and that you have in front of these individuals a variety of world-class standards that have already been developed that they can use to draw upon to create our own set of standards. You know, I think that oftentimes we hear that this is such a difficult process and that we have to reinvent the wheel, and nothing could be further from the truth. And there are fantastic standards from states like Massachusetts and California that we could adapt to our Wisconsin model. And I think that's what the governor is asking for. That's what we in the legislature were trying to do in the piece of legislation that we put forth.
I want to get your reaction to something that Steve Castell, the Republican from the Elkhart Lake area, had to say about this. He basically said this was a desperate maneuver by perhaps a desperate candidate. And he said that we're just going to give it a new name, and that at the end of the day, this is all about politics. What do you say to that?
I think that was very offensive that he said that, offensive to the governor who has been at the table on this issue. I think it's very offensive to the parents who have taken the time to understand this issue. They understand the standards. And to think that we would put a new name on them and they're going to sit back and think, okay, everything's fine. No, I was offended by it. But, I'm not surprised. He's leaving the legislature in somewhat of a disgruntled manner.
State Senator Leah Vukmir, the Republican from Wauwatosa, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. You bet. Milwaukee